It may not be immediately obvious what the link is between Mark's story and our story, but the answer is the tin market. Mark's company is at the forefront of future demand, and we're at the forefront of future supply. So we're kind of at different ends of the same story. So we have a company here, Rome Resources, recently come to AIM on at the end of July. So it's only 2.5 months into the story. And we've hit the ground running in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we're a tin and copper explorer. We'll start with a few bullet points. It was previously traded on TSX. So it was a reverse takeover into by a company called Pathfinder Minerals. So there's a lot of legacy shareholders from Pathfinder and Rome Resources in Canada, and new shareholders where we raised 4 million at the end of July. So it's quite a varied shareholder base. So the team is probably the USP for the company, because DRC, and we'll talk about the details later, but the DRC is not known for having a lot of small to medium-sized explorers and producers. It's definitely the bailiwick of larger companies, with the exception of these guys, Mark Gasson and Klaus Eckhoff, who've been doing this in the DRC now for over 25 years. The project is right next door to the highest grade tin mine in the world. So it's a very good address in terms of the geology. We've been drilling, we're drilling now, and we're about a third of the way through. So I'll go into the details of what we think we're finding. The new board is fit for purpose. There are 3 geologists on the board, and also we have francophone commercial and legal people. So it's a very good, nicely balanced board. So DRC, Central Africa. Mark, myself, and Jamie went out there a couple of weeks ago to do a site visit. So a really interesting part of the world. But what's interesting here is that Mark and Klaus and Jamie as well, as I said, have spent 25 years in the DRC, and they've turned over a number of successful projects. They've made a lot of money for shareholders on a number of projects. The Kibali Gold project in the north, Kibali Copper project way down in the south, and Monono Lithium. They were responsible for bringing in the Alphamin tin. As I said, we'll talk a lot about Alphamin because obviously it's right next door. The geology is the same. It's a very, very close analog, and it's a very, very good business because of the grade of the tin. So they were responsible for finding the Alphamin deposit and then sold it on. And now we're concentrating on a project right next door. So a lot of excellent track record from the team in terms of making money for people in DRC projects. Again, this is the board I mentioned. I've just put in bold basically everything that relates to DRC. Myself, I'm a geologist, principally oil and gas background, and then into minerals in the last few years. Mark, Jamie, and Klaus are the kind of the backbone of the technical side of things. So the asset, as I say, it's in eastern DRC. It's only 8 kilometers from the Alphamin project, and it's a remote location. It's helicopter operations. We have 4 rigs running at the moment, so we're hitting the ground running with a really aggressive program, using clearly the funds that were raised back at the end of July. And the area to the north there, so we have the Kalai prospect and the Montagoma prospect. Kalai is pure tin, we'll talk about. Montagoma is tin and copper with some silver. So these are along the same play. It's a kind of a kind of noddy map, but basically it's showing around the edge of this granite complex, which is a tin granite, similar to what you get in Cornwall. There are mineralization of tin and copper developed around the rim, and so this is what we're chasing up in here, and that's where we're drilling at the moment. What started this was doing some geochemical soil samples surveys, so basically looking at what the anomalous soil metals would be, and this is what picked up the 2 There are two anomalies, pure tin at Calais and tin copper at Montagoma. And if you see here, this is about 2 orders of magnitude greater than background, so it's a significant surface tin anomaly. A lot of places in DRC have artisanal mining. Calais has a limited amount of artisanal mining. Montagoma is an absolute greenfield site, so there's been no activity whatsoever. Looking at Calais in a little more detail, so there's a number of, this is the tin anomaly, tin in soil anomaly running northwest-southeast towards, in the direction of Alpha-Min. There's a number of holes been drilled in a 2022-23 program, which is before we came to the story, which has showed some really good tin grades. Now, in terms of world-class tin grades, we can look at Alpha-Min at between 2.5% and 4%, the best in the world. The next one down, San Rafael in Peru, is 2.5%, and then it drops off. Some of the Cornish ones get down to kind of 1.5%, 1%, and then some of the larger producers are really at the bottom end, less than 0.5%. So this is a really high grade tin. And here we have 12 meters at 1%, and these are showing very high grades, 0.5 meter at 12%, 2.5 at 3.4%. So these are very similar to what we're seeing at Alpha-Min in their early stage of drilling. So we're now drilling additional holes. You see these 3 arrows. We're now working our way south. So this is our current program of getting more tin intercepts. Montagoma to the east, as I mentioned, is a tin and copper. So we have 3.5% tin, 3.5% copper, and up to, there's a lot of zinc as well. So up to 3.5% of zinc across a 160 meter zone. So there's a lot of mineralization, a lot of sulfide and tin oxide mineralization. It's a very complex system, and we're just basically working our way through drilling it. It's quite large. So we look at the Alpha-Min analog again. This rather fuzzy picture is a helicopter shot of the Alpha-Min operation. As I say, it's only 5 miles down the road, so it's basically a pixel on a map of DRC. So Alpha-Min, this is this very steeply dipping northwest-southeast trending tin and copper anomalies. We have something very similar. In fact, could well be even bigger at Montagoma. So the geology is almost identical. The thing about the tin at Alpha-Min as well is that there's a combination of the fact that it's a very high grade and also it's low cost. DRC lifting costs or production costs in DRC for the Alpha-Min mine is about $12,000 a ton. Now the current price of tin is $32,000 a ton. So very strongly profitable operation. And the tin price can drop down quite significantly and they would still be very profitable. Here it is here at $12,000 a ton. Most of the world's tin production starts to go a lot more expensive. Grade, fantastic, and product and profitability really good as well. So that's basically, we've got more of the same where we are. And I mentioned right at the beginning about the tin market. It has historically, tin has not been, very sexy, but you can see here on that this is tin lifting off from the rest of the basket of metals, copper, nickel, cobalt, etc. I think there's a realization now that with AI and with electric vehicles, etc., everything in the electronics world has to be stuck together with tin. There is no substitute. And so, the MIT have done some work on what the impact of these various commodities is on the demand going forward from AI, from advanced electronics, and the green transition. And you see, although this is kind of semi-quantitative, you can see that tin is top of the list. So there's really no downward pressure going forward on the tin price. It really has a a very good future. This just shows basically 3 snapshots of supply and demand. So supply is on the right-hand side of these from 2019, 2025, and projected to 2030. They were rather insipid colors, but on the demand side, we have the green transition, so-called, and the kind of traditional use of tin. And you can see as you go through 2025 to 2030, that stays roughly the same. But the green transition, which includes the use for AI, etc., is the main driver in increased demand. On the supply side, this kind of brown color is what we have as mine supply right now. Recycling, tin is quite difficult to recycle, so only a small percentage of the tin is recycled. And this rather smudgy color is the deficit. So by 2030, we're looking at about 100,000 tons a year of deficit in the tin supply. So it's all very good for us in terms of building value, building a story, building an asset that will be valuable going forward. So what we're doing, we're drilling at the moment. We have 4 rigs on. I actually said 3 here, but the 4th one has actually been put in place today or yesterday. And we're splitting the drilling between the 2 prospects, so the Kalai prospect of the pure tin and the Montagoma prospect of the copper and tin. And the copper intercepts are looking pretty strong as well as the tin. So I think we originally brought this story on as a tin, but I think it will be a combination of tin and copper by the time we've finished. We're about 1/3 of the way through the program. The way it works is we drill the holes, take the core, do our little bit of in-house sampling to make sure that we like what we're seeing, send it off to the lab. In places like DRC, there's a lot of paperwork involved in doing that, so it does take a bit of time. So we do have a conveyor belt. The first 2 holes, the cores from the first 2 holes are at the lab now. They will be analyzed. Then we will announce the results, probably where are we now? Yeah, by the end of the month. And so that will continue through. We will be drilling through probably until December, and all of these results and the RNSs, etc., will follow on through. And that's reflected in this kind of simplistic timetable where we're looking at the drilling and the assays going forward, reporting. So the main target for this program is to come up with a maiden resource of tin and copper. And that's what we're looking to do by January 25, so very beginning of next year. We have, at the moment, we have a program of 3,000 meters of drilling. As I said, we're about 1/3 of the way through. We're looking at potentially extending that. We don't know quite how we're going to achieve that, but we are looking at potentially extending it because as we like what we're seeing, and the helicopter operations, the camp, and all the logistics are all in place, it seems sensible to try and push that forward as far as we can. So that's something that we're kind of keeping in mind all the time. So I think in our USP, as I mentioned, is the fact that we're in DRC as a small company, really active, and these guys are doing a great job in terms of getting the work done, pushing it through to get all the results out. So we think that's a USP for us because there aren't really any other successful smaller DRC explorers. Very promising play. So it's the alpha min play again, as I said, 4% tin, world's highest grade, extremely profitable, 8 kilometers away, and on the same play. So it really is a very strong read-through to that, which is why we're drilling it. The best intercepts have been 3.5% tin and almost 8% copper. So it's showing very strong similarities with the alpha min story. Drilling up the play now, as I've said, and it's a low-cost production environment. That's another, in a way, USP, but for DRC rather than ourselves, is that if you go to Australia or the US or even Peru, production operations are much more expensive and therefore profitability is a lot lower. So it is a good place to be in terms of the commercial side of things. And I mentioned again at the beginning that there's strong forward curve and demand for tin. Supply has been squeezed. There are some Malaysian problems. Myanmar has shut down tin operations. So it is a little bit of a bespoke commodity in terms of there's a base of production, but actually if things can go wrong, the market can be upset quite quickly. So really, it does need more supply for the stability. Because of our drilling, well, we gave a little update on Tuesday. We'll probably do something else more on the actual hole results next week, and then just keep the news flowing through to the end of the year. As I said, we've only been on the market since the end of July, so we're only 2.5 months into the game, but we've really hit the ground running, and hopefully we'll get some pretty good results by the end of the year. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul. Have we got any questions in the room for Paul? We've got one just here. Thank you.
So what's the progress after you get the actual results? Do you intend to actually just market yourself to sell yourself off, or are you going to try and get production, and would that give need for further cash raise?
Well, what Klaus and Mark have done in the past is they've taken the project to pre-feasibility or bankable feasibility study, so that the kind of the next step above the resource reporting to kind of hit the maximum value on the curve, so and then sell on. So there will always be one eye to looking at, say, for example, Alpha Min or some of the local Chinese operators to come in and take us out. It may be more sensible that the next phase is not dilutive for shareholders, but they were to come in as a joint venture partner or something like that to kind of take us to the bankable feasibility study without diluting shareholders. But I think everything is on the table in terms of how we maximize. It's quite closely held in terms of the legacy Rome Resources team have about 25% of the equity. The Pathfinder shareholders have probably about the same again. So there's a lot of people in there that really are trying to drive this forward, and I think maximizing value. There's no prescribed way of doing it. We just want to do it at the best price and the best time. So there could be further raises, but it's not top of the agenda, no.
So what's the current capitalization in the share price, is it?
So the share price, it floated at 0.3. It then dropped off because there was quite a few chunks of shares issued to advisors and a lot of those have kind of been drip fed by. But about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, it started to come up again. So I think I didn't look today, to be honest, but I think we're about 0.27. So we're just below our float.
Okay. And what's the current, everybody's heard not so good things about the political situation in DRC. What's the current situation with that?
Well, as I said, Mark and I went out there the other week and not really any issues. Operationally, you have to be careful. I mean, there's no question that to the north of where we are, a couple of 100 kilometers, there's the M23 rebels and there's issues there. But everything operates the way it should do. The proof of the pudding in terms of getting your product out and getting paid for it is Alpha Min, because they've just increased their production 28% quarter on quarter. So they brought a separate mine on stream, and that's all going out through Uganda, and it's all fine. So I think, the government wants the revenue, it wants the royalties and the tax, et cetera, and they will help wherever they can to get that done. In So I think, I was pleasantly surprised. I was quite thinking, DRC, everybody's kind of slightly reticent about the DRC, but it was fine. So I think it's definitely workable.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep, go ahead.
I didn't understand the bit of the narrative about the change from the Toronto Stock Exchange over to AIM. So,
Yeah. So So Pathfinder Minerals, as was, had a Mozambique project which was expropriated by the Mozambique government. This is 10 years ago, and they spent a lot of time trying to get that back, and then eventually sold the claim on to somebody. So they became a cash shell. So I was asked by one of the shareholders to come in and see if I could find a project to do an RTO to kind of reboot the company. So this is where Rome Resources came in. They were on TSX. They had a really difficult time raising money for A, for tin, and B, for Africa. So we thought we'd come to AIM, see what the market thought of it, and it was quite a strong response. I think the UK market understands Africa more than North America, and tin is just. There's also a bit of timing. I think tin has started to become a more high-profile commodity. So yeah, it was, and it's worked out. I think I'm hoping. We raised the money, which they couldn't do in Canada. So the TSX. Listing is gone. We're just AIM.
That answer the question. Excellent. Any more questions in the room? In which case, I had a question, if that's okay. You mentioned that there aren't many companies of your size operating in DRC. Kind of why is that, and how have you or how will you be able to operate? I guess if it's something that hasn't been done. Typically.
Well, it's a complicated jurisdiction. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of anything and everything from getting a permit for the helipad, or a permit for this or permit for that. Sure. Requires people who know what they're doing, and these guys and the team know what they're doing. So I think they're always pulling their hair out, but it does get done. Sure. So I think that's it. It's because of these 25 years of experience.
I was going to say, so it's because the team has got a lot of experience in DRC. Yeah. They're able to handle that. And you mentioned potentially increasing the scope of the drilling program. How easy would that be in terms of getting equipment on site and kind of manpower? Is that relatively?
Well, that's easy because they're all there. Sure. So they will be there as long as we basically keep paying for them to do the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
okay. So that part of it.
The ball's in our court on how we do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Chris? You had a question?
Yeah, Paul. I was just going to ask you about the fact that obviously you've got seasoned people on board with the chairman, proven track record of discovering and monetising. So what people have you got on board in terms of doing the actual mining?
Well, we're not at the mining stage.
Get to that stage, yeah.
The exploration stage. So Jamie Anderson, who's Australian, but he actually lives in Congo. He's got a Congolese family, so he's in country. He's the guy who goes back to your question.
Sure.
He's the guy who really is very critical at managing everything from Goma. And so we have 4 geologists on site. 2 of whom work for Alpha Min, 2 of whom have worked for Klaus and Mark for years. So they're really trusted. They understand tin. Tin is in a way, quite difficult because if you look at a core, tin cassiterite's kind of brown and kind of not very exciting. Not like the copper picture that I showed at the beginning. So you do need to have somebody who's got their eye in and has got the experience, and that's what these guys have. So yeah, I think it's a good team.
Excellent. Any more questions? Okay, in which case, thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Cheers.